Support for Radio Friends comes from La Brunerie Financial, where they work to ensure a lifetime of financial security for people from all walks of life, from investment services to retirement plans. If you're looking for a trustworthy company that has the experience and knowledge to put your interests first, contact La Brunerie Financial, a community-based investment counseling firm since 1966. Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends on Monday, September the 4th. This is Labor Day, and I'm glad you chose to spend just a little bit of time with us today. My friend Larry Brown is here, and whenever we introduce Larry, we say he has either a story or he has a song. Today, you don't have songs.
Well, I'm going to tell about a very important event that I participated in.
So it's almost a story.
I'll be telling the stories about what happened back in July.
Okay, so Larry Brown with a story of something that happened back in July, which was very personal to you.
Oh, personal to me, and I would say a labor of love.
Yeah.
So we could make that connection to
with Labor Day.
Yeah. Well, I was the primary leader of a pilgrimage of 33 people from mostly the Columbia area that followed the Cherokee Trail of Tears from Tennessee, North Carolina, and Georgia, all the way to Oklahoma, former Indian Territory. Now, the group that I was working with is called Race Onward, and that's a group here in Columbia, primarily representatives of congregations who focus on civil rights concerns, and they have taken regular civil rights pilgrimages. So they visited some of the important civil rights sites across the South. And 2 years ago, this group went to Greenwood, Oklahoma, Tulsa, in commemoration of the 100th anniversary of the Greenwood Massacre. While we were there, we had a day that we went over to the Cherokee World Headquarters over in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, and folks started asking me, well, is there a connection between the Native Americans that were taken to Oklahoma and the African Americans who came to Oklahoma? And of course there is. And that led folks to say, well, let's find out about that. Can we do a pilgrimage? And so for the past year, I did preparations, did some reconnaissance trips to Tennessee and Georgia, and then also Oklahoma to work out a plan. So 33 of us, plus our bus driver, crossed through 8 states in a period of 8 days, traveled 2,700 miles, and visited 16 important sites, museums that involved the forced relocation of the Cherokee people, but not just the Cherokee. So a little bit of historical context. Native American peoples, of course, have been removed from their homelands since the very first visits of colonial Europeans, and primarily from the east pushed further and further west. Well, the period of the first decades of the 1800s was most crucial for the nations who lived in the southeast of what became the United States, and particularly Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Muskogee, or Creek, also named Creek, and the Seminole peoples. They were called the 5 civilized tribes because they did as much as they could to become like European Americans, building the houses, structuring their governance, having a written language, creating a constitution, and getting into private property. So all of these shifts to look and behave as if they were European Americans. But that did not keep, again, the pressures of colonial capitalism to remove them from their land. And groups like the Cherokee had most of what is today the Great Smokies area, but the Choctaw in Mississippi and Alabama, the Chickasaw, also Tennessee and that area, and the Seminole, primarily in Florida. And all of these groups then, over a period of about 40 years, were forcibly relocated. They had the option to voluntarily go to Indian Territory, which became, again, this territories of Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma. Or if they didn't want to go voluntarily, they were. The Indian Removal Act of 1830 pushed through by President Andrew Jackson, then forced them to leave. And by 1838 and 39, they were literally, soldiers were showing up, grab what you can grab, and you're out of here. They would.
So think about this. Stop and think about it. This is your home.
Yes.
This is your land. This is your land.
Yes.
That you've lived on
That's right.
all of your life and your family.
Generations. Sure.
Somebody comes and says, even though you've been here and this is yours and you've cared for it, you must leave because we're taking over.
Yeah, because of the need for land for the colonial expansion. Gold was discovered in Georgia, part of that motivation. And there were many land speculators, of course, who would get that land, turn it over, and sell it. And the growth and development of plantation agriculture that was moving across, again, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. Now, there were treaties, many treaties, but those treaties were oftentimes I think it would be fair to say corrupt. I mean, they were not legitimate because they may not have been signed with the real representatives of these people, or they didn't know what they were signing, or there was breaking of those treaties. So there was not much choice. So we're talking about, now, all things considered, there are many other groups removed and pushed further west from the Northeast as well, and many of them went across Missouri. But they were finally, in the end, at gunpoint, walk, maybe get on a wagon, but go the hundreds of miles from the area around Tennessee and Georgia and North Carolina.
So you did the Trail of Tears.
We did it. We started here in Columbia. We visited our own Missouri State Park, Trail of Tears State Park, which was a good introduction. And we kind of followed the route, the northern route, sort of backwards. So we made our way all the way to Tennessee, visited Sequoiah's birthplace, the inventor of the Cherokee.
We're almost out of time, Larry.
Yeah.
But emotionally.
Oh, my goodness.
Emotionally, how did you react to this?
Well, there is the experience of what that trauma was like. So you're feeling that sense of Holocaust. But when we got to Oklahoma, we were able to visit now the cultural centers of all 5 of these groups to see an amazing turnaround. The things that are happening, particularly among the Choctaw and Chickasaw people, with education and economic development, and bringing young people actually back now to work within those nations. And we had a wonderful experience with a Cherokee Christian church as well on Sunday morning. But we found hospitality. So it was both a mixture of the trauma of experiencing that journey, the recognition of the social injustices that are occurring, but also the hopeful signs of what's possible. So there's a lot of follow-up that's going to be happening now, particularly those of us who were the pilgrims.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I appreciate it. And just listening to you was pretty emotional for me. I can only imagine what it felt like, and the trauma and the heartbreak.
To visit with those people and their descendants and saying, yeah.
Thank you, Larry.
Oh,
come back
thanks
again.
for letting me share.
Like to hear something? Drop me an email, pepperpmissouri.edu. Bye-bye.